Tucker Carlson talked about Dictators on his show, and it was one of the silliest tirades I've ever seen. Watch.
Journalists can love, too, their latest crush, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. Kim Yo-jong, whose brother is, of course, the undisputed dictator of that Stalinist hermit kingdom, is at the Winter Olympics this week. And according to the press, she's a huge star, a bigger star even than our vice president, Mike Pence, or for that matter, a bigger star than any of the actual athletes. Don't believe it? Consider some of these descriptions. From the Washington Post, quote, the Ivanka Trump of North Korea captivates. From CNN, she's stealing the show. The New York Times says she turns on the charm. Reuters, the newswire, meanwhile, writes this, quote, North Korea has emerged as the early favorite to grab one of the Winter Olympics' most important medals, the diplomatic gold. Well, if you're surprised, you shouldn't be. Progressives have a long and dishonorable history of supporting the world's most repressive regimes, no exaggeration. The New York Times, just to name one example, supported Joseph Stalin even as he was murdering up to 12 million Ukrainians in the famous famine there. That paper also led the cheering for Fidel Castro as he turned Cuba into a police state. In 1975, and we're not making this up, when the Khmer Rouge swept to power in Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge, the New York Times made this prediction in a headline, quote, for most, a better life. One of the worst genocides in history followed shortly thereafter. It turned out not to be true. Well, it's hard to find a dictator the left has not supported. Chairman Mao, Hugo Chavez, Idi Amin. These people seem to have nothing in common but one thing. They all hate America. Turns out progressive activists also have one thing in common. They resent their fathers. That's where their politics come from. The rest is just window dressing.
Why would you say that? You know that there's no factual basis for what you're saying. Yeah, the left. They all hate America, and they all hate their fathers. Hey! Do you have no journalistic integrity at all? So you're fine with just making it up and smearing an entire wing or side of the political aisle. You have no problem with that? That doesn't make you feel like, hey, maybe I should be a little more careful with how I word... No. So, Tucker, first of all, the idea of, well, they hate America. Well, no. Dissent is the highest form of patriotism. That's a very famous saying. Why? Because the key notion behind that is, hey, when you heavily criticize your country, actually what you're trying to do is make it better. It's not like you're criticizing your country to try to tear it down. Look at it the same way you'd look at a good father or mother parenting their kid. If they find out that their kid was doing crystal meth behind a dumpster at the local Arby's and having unsafe sex with 8 people a night, this kid is really fucked up. As I'm talking here, I'm realizing that. When you say, whoa, what are you doing, Denny? I don't know why I named him Denny. That's a little weird. What are you doing? Stop. No, we're going to get you to rehab. We're going to help you. We're going to fix what's going on in your life. We'll let you see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Well, so we're going to help you. We're criticizing your bad actions of doing the fucking crystal meth and all that, and we're going to heavily criticize it, but it's because we love you and we want to fix it. Well, that's the same thing that the left does when they critique America. They're saying, hey, here are all the problems, let's try to fix it. We invaded Iraq and killed at least 200,000 people in an illegal offensive war. Let's not do that. Let's not torture people and violate international law and the Geneva Conventions and the U.S. Constitution. Let's not pretend like we believe in liberal values and then do the opposite of liberal values. So that's... Why would you not... There's this thing called straw manning. You guys are all familiar with it. Like, oh, you make up the argument of your opponent so that you can easily tear it down. So you pretend like your opponent's argument is weaker than it is so you could tear it down. That's like exactly what Tucker Carlson is doing there. Why don't you steel man your opponent? Where you say, hey, here's the strongest interpretation of their argument, and let me tell you how I disagree with it. He doesn't do that because he can't fucking do that because he's being a dishonest, disingenuous prick. That's what you're being, Tucker. And then the idea, oh, progressives hate their fathers. The fuck are you talking? What? I'm sure there's some progressives that hate their fathers. I'm sure there's some conservatives that hate their fathers. I'm sure there's some people who hate their fathers. And sometimes it's deserved. Sometimes it's not deserved. It depends on the individual situation. You have to go on a case-by-case basis. But no, the same people who rail against collectivism have no problem making a collective judgment on half the fucking country. I hate their fathers. Really? I'm somebody who's considered a progressive. I don't hate my dad. Seems like I just refuted your idiotic theory in a matter of 3 seconds, you dipshit. Why do people do this? Like, why are you such a hacky, partisan fucking guy? Like, you don't have to be that. You can make somewhat decent arguments, but why are you being hacky? And then finally, let's get to the meat of it. And this really is where he just pours on the stupid. He's like, let me name some dictators supported by the left here. You know, the left loves to support dictators. The left. As opposed to the right, who, you know, very principled stance against dictators. Like Donald Trump, who Tucker Carlson faithfully supports on a regular basis. It's not like he's president right now and the United States currently supports 73% of the world's dictatorships. Now, to be fair to Tucker, that's the case under Obama, too. Guess who called that out under Obama? I called that out under Obama. You want to know why? Because I'm not a fucking partisan hack. But Tucker Carlson will do a rant talking about how the left supports dictators and not even mention that the president that he supports currently supports 73% of the world's dictatorships. Now, putting that aside, which we shouldn't because it already disproves his silliness, Diaz, Batista, Somoza, Duvalier, Pinochet, Ziem, the Shah, Suharto. You know what? Those are dictators. Those are dictators supported by the United States of America. Those are dictators supported by the United States of America, many of them during a right-wing administration. You know, the left, they like dictators and it's really bad. The right doesn't. The right doesn't. The left love dictators. It's bad. It's bad. Donald Trump just gave a $350 billion weapons deal over a decade to Saudi frickin' Arabia. You know, the absolute monarchy and theocracy and dictatorship that beheads people in the public square for fucking witchcraft and sorcery? You know those people? Those wonderful people? Your president just did that. And you didn't find time to bring that up in your shitty fucking rant. Because you're a hack. Because you're a hack, Tucker. There's no other interpretation of this. So, yeah, that's my breakdown of it. And by the way, listen, are there some people on the left who have supported some dictators? Sure. But we have to be careful and objective in our analysis. So, when somebody on the left, like myself, argues, hey, I don't support Saddam Hussein. I just think it's not our place to do an illegal invasion of his country and topple him. A hack like Tucker Carlson would say, Kyle Kulinski supports dictators. Kyle Kulinski supports dictators. But no, that's a total misstatement of my position. My position is, I don't think the United States should illegally invade a country that didn't attack us and topple him, even if he's a bad guy and a dictator. So I don't support Saddam Hussein. I don't support the U.S. toppling Saddam Hussein. There's a giant distinction there. There's a big difference between actively supporting a dictator and saying it's not the U.S.'s place to topple said dictator. Those are different things. By the same token, Assad in Syria, I don't support the United States toppling him. That doesn't mean I'm pro-Assad. If there was some sort of a process, a democratic process, or otherwise in Syria, where some other leader comes to power, I'm going to say, okay. I'm not going to go, we bring back the other guy. No, because I'm not actually in favor of dictators. I am oftentimes in favor of the U.S. not toppling governments that didn't attack us. So that's a distinction that, of course, is way above and beyond what Tucker Carlson is willing to admit. Because if he admits that, he would have to acknowledge there's actually nuance and variation in the shit he's saying. And he's not in that business. He's in the business of peddling fake outrage and false narratives.